Hello, hello.
Hey, hey, hey.
I'm really excited about this. So this is the voice gaming talk.
It's going to be great.
I'm really glad you came by, Justin.
Yes, thanks for
I
inviting
thought there
me.
was going to be this do it all myself, and you're out in the hall, and I'm like, there's Justin. Come on, let's get in here.
Yep.
So this is super cool. We're going to talk about a few different things with games. First, I want to sort of orient you to the lay of the land with what Amazon has with respect to games and how you might be able to use those inside of your Alexa skill. And then we're going to get into the top things that we've seen good game skill builders doing inside of their games inside Alexa. So we have a few different pieces. There's Amazon Game Tech in general. And across that, you have a bunch of AWS services. So there's this global infrastructure that you can make use of. Helps you easily build out servers, databases, hit the scale you need. One of the worst things is to make a great game, and all of a sudden you get many, many people, and you can't scale fast enough, right?
Right.
So helps with that. Additionally, there are a series of pre-built game services that you can use. There's leaderboards and challenges and affordances for A/B testing and this kind of thing. Really let you get past some of the core things that you need to build any game and have an AWS service to do that. And then with content creation tools, there are quite a few that you can use that help you build out really deep, like AAA games. There's a whole tool and a stack around this thing called Lumberyard, which will let you get in and build big, deep, immersive worlds and build them for really high-end sort of AAA experiences. One of the things I like about that, coming from the Alexa side, is that you can voice enable those things. And so we're going to talk about how you connect two skills together, like a skill plus a game together. Examples that would be like Destiny 2 or something where you can say, call in my friends, right?
Right. Yeah.
Cool. And then we've got distribution and marketing. So there's ways for you to promote your experience inside of the Amazon.com experience if you're building a full-on like PC game or such. And then of course through the Alexa experience, you can let people go enable your skill and get it all going.
Cool.
All right. So one question we always have is like, why do voice in games? What's it about? And I mean, frankly, we've had this question with every new technology. Why should I do mobile phone in games? And there's always an interesting reason. For me, voice is kind of back to our roots in many ways. It allows people to play in a way they're used to playing. They can have these conversations. It really can bring back the imagination.
Right.
Just sort of like.
It's also like a more natural way to interact because you're conversing with the game rather than using some foreign object in your hand with some weird joysticks and a bunch of buttons on it. Like, you know, if you give that to somebody who doesn't know or understand how to play games, they're going to be like, what button do I push?
Right. Yeah, in fact, a lot of game developers have used that very thing as a part of the gameplay. Like I've seen experiences where you're trying to control these VR arms, right? And it's very hard to do it. And so that actually, in a weird way, makes it fun because the affordances that you use to play the game are so difficult to use. Yeah, and then I also think that it brings in this communal experience where you can now have like a board night kind of a thing where it's you and your friends and your stuff. You know, if I'm playing a mobile game, I'd be playing a mobile game by myself. In fact, if we were playing some sort of board game right here together, we could even do it with the chatters on Twitch, right? And I've seen people role play and do Dungeons and Dragons and those kinds of things. But if I was playing Candy Crush, I'm kind of like in my phone, right? So voice lets you sort of bring you back into that whole more holistic experience with everybody. So I think that's pretty cool about it too. So let's take a look at a few different kinds of games that we're seeing right now so that maybe you can sort of, as a game developer, you can think about what lane do you want to jump into. And I'm not saying these are the only lanes. There might be others. In fact, one of the cool things about game developers is they often are the ones who are inventing the future and trying to figure out what could go. How do I break this, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of room for experimentation.
Totally. So here's what we're seeing now. There's a set of games that are standalone games. And these are games where you are just playing it with Jeopardy. Or with Jeopardy? You could play just Jeopardy with Alexa.
Yes.
So it's you playing with Alexa, and you just get immersed in that experience. And that's what it's about. It's a voice game. And so quizzes like Jeopardy are very good examples of this. There's adventure games. the Magic Door, Six Swords. I don't know if you've played Six Swords.
No, I haven't.
It's a super deep game. It's a fun one to go check out. And then Yes, Sire is one of my favorites. It's a very lightweight, simplistic kind of a game, which makes it, I don't know, really fun, right?
Yeah, it's amazing how just yes and no questions can be so engaging. You know.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go. Later on, we'll give like a little more of a explanation of how they work and how they're actually starting to help make money off of that game.
Great.
So that's one kind of thing. Standalone experience. Me or us and Alexa are playing together. The next one is an integrated experience. And an integrated experience is where you're playing with Alexa, but you're also got some sort of physical, real-world thing going on with it. So one of those is a board game called Win and Roam. And so you've got the board game, and we're moving our what do you call the little dudes, the little tokens?
The pieces?
The pieces? Wait, what do you call those? It's your...
I don't know.
I don't know, the little...
If it was Monopoly, it'd be the shoe, but I don't
shoe.
know.
You know, you gotta be the puppy dog. I'm the puppy dog always, and you put him on his nose. Okay, so anyway, you take your character and you move it around the board, and you're interacting. Alexa is sort of guiding you through the experience and making sure you know what to do next and keeping interactive. And then there's another example of this, which is with buttons or Alexa gadgets.
Right.
And so we have an example here of button bandits where you've got buttons and everybody has to hit the button. And the first one to hit the button for the right, when the colors are the same, you hit the button, you win, but you never hit the button when it's red, right? And so that's sort of it's like a high speed kind of a be first.
Right, so the skill still has some voice interaction with it, but the main interaction with the game and how you win is pressing the button the fastest at the right time.
The fastest at the right time, yeah. So that's an integrated experience. We've got both an audio and some sort of physical experience. And then there's this companion experience. And so, Call of Duty did some cool stuff. Destiny did some cool stuff. There's others coming out all the time. And what I like about this one is I'm jacked in. I got my headphones on. I'm doing my thing. I got the mouse going. And I'm like, oh no, call my friends. Or change my loadout. And so the Destiny 2 one is actually pretty cool because they actually made a device, like a Bluetooth speaker that goes with your Alexa, and it looks like Ghost, the character in Destiny 2, and the voice actor for Ghost did all the voices for the whole experience. So is there any carryover?
Right.
All right. So those are the three we're going to keep in mind. As we go through all of these different techniques, we'll keep harkening back to these three different methods. All right. So if you really want to get a game working, there's one part which is build your mechanic, build your game loop, get your core piece of fun. Maybe it's a spelling thing or a quiz thing or an adventure game. Whatever your base mechanic is, that's fine. But then on top of that, you've got to build around the game and make sure that you've got a full, deep, complete experience. I tell you, I've seen a lot of developers in voice, but even prior in web and mobile, where they've go, my game is so much better, it's much more fun. And then you go, well, how do you deal with this and that? And they don't really deal with all the extras.
Right.
And so what they really have is a fun game mechanic, but not a full game.
And sometimes that game mechanic is great, but it's not enough to carry the entire experience past the initial fun of that mechanic. And once that wears off, it's like, okay, well, now I'm on the next thing.
Right. Or they don't remember about it, they don't come back and all those things. So, all right, so let's take a look at the first one. The first one here is memory. It's really important to, let me give you the most obvious, but very common actually, bad example. I'm playing a game, I make it to level 4, I leave, and I come back tomorrow, and I'm playing level 1 again. I don't want to play level 1 again.
Yeah, at that point I'm done.
I don't want the same
I don't want to play this game
questions.
anymore.
Right. And it's actually remarkable because in voice, it's even more critical because if you had done that with a mobile app, you'd be like, oh, scroll, skip next, now I'm back to where I want to be.
Right.
And you have this ability to scan and process quickly and ignore a bunch of stuff. With voice, you're hearing every bit of it. And so if you have to go through the level 1 again, it's kind of a mess. So let's talk about how we think about memory. There are really two main components to memory.
Yes.
One is I'm in the game and I'm playing the game. Right? So I'm just keeping track of what's going on. And so for those, we call those session attributes.
Right, because they disappear at the end of the game session.
Right, once your session is over, they're gone. Then the other one is that experience where I go from this session to another session. So across days or across weeks or even like hours, depending upon the situation. So those would be persistent attributes. So we need to persist them into some sort of database, some sort of storage, and we can't just keep them in our skill. There are folks who have tried to do things like keep a high score in their skill, and they go away at the end of the session. So you really need to store those off.
Right.
To store stuff, you have to know who you're storing it for. So there's a few different ways to key off of who the player is. In a lot of skills where you don't have any memory, you don't really need to know that it's the same person coming back, right? Because you just give them the same experience again. So an example of this would be something like I say, hey, how old is Mel Gibson? If I ask tomorrow, how old is Mel Gibson? It's going to give me the answer again. Like I don't need to have any memory for that.
Right.
So how do we do memory? There's a few different pieces. One is a user ID. This is the simplest one. It comes in every response from the Alexa service. You have a user ID. You can then just do a key, that user ID, here's their level, their state, their whatever.
Right, you can save all the information that you need per user with that user ID.
All right, and then you want to explain account linking?
Sure, yes. So account linking is something that you can use. Say you already have like an existing service, and you want to tie the Alexa skill to that service. So for example, like with the companion type skills, with you had Call of Duty and Destiny as those, and so you could have like a separate you have a separate account. Maybe it's your gamer tag or something like that. You could use those same credentials that you would log in there to link the Alexa skill to that account, and so you can have access to that information from the user not only within the skill but outside of the skill. So you can bring in some interesting things, like you could give them offers for different maybe coupons or bargains and stuff for within the Alexa skill or throughout other places as well.
Yeah, so this one's really great. It gives you a deep connection. It also requires, though, that they go into their app and they do an OAuth sign-in. So there's a higher
bit of friction.
There's more friction. You get way more value, but there is more friction. So you have to decide if that's worth it for you to do in your experience. And then the other one is contact permissions. And so this is where if I just want to know your name and I want to say your name in the context of a skill, be a little more friendly. Instead of just asking, hey, what's your name? I could also say, hey, can I have permission to get the info out of your account, and then use your name, and stuff like that. Okay, so let's do a quick demo.
All right. Demo time.
Demo time. Alrighty, so we want to go. I'll go test a skill here. So what you're looking at, this is the developer console, and I'm in the mode here where I'm testing skills. So I'm going to type in phrases as if I was talking to Alexa, and then Alexa will respond. And I'll show you this skill. This is called high-low game. And the point of this game is to guess the number. So right now, you guys could start, it's a number between 1 and 100.
Okay.
So in the chat, start throwing out numbers. Like, what do you think the number is going to be? We'll see what happens. Open high-low score.
Should I tell you my number?
Yeah, what's your
Welcome
number?
to high-low guessing game. You have played 7 times. Would you like to play?
All right. So let me tell you my number too. Let me guess what my number is going to be. In just a second here. We go 10 is what you guessed.
Say yes to continue or no to end the game.
By the way, I'm going to guess 97, just so you know.
Okay.
Some say yes.
Great. Try saying a number to start the game.
Justin says 10.
10 is too low.
All right.
Did I say 79?
You said 97.
I want to reverse that.
Okay.
79.
I'll allow it.
Dang it!
I'll allow it.
Okay. So 10 is too low, right?
Who else put 97 in the chat, or 79?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, so like, let's see if we go 78.
All right. Ooh.
78 is too low.
Too low. Maybe it was 97.
78 is too low, but what if I go 80?
80 is too high.
Oh.
Okay, so what's happening here is we're going back and forth. It's getting guesses. I'm going to show you sort of the JSON that's going back and forth here. a couple things. Here are the session attributes, and it says that I've played 7 games. Oops, let's go zoom that in for you. That the number that we should be guessing is 79, which is how I knew our number. I might have looked at the session attributes to know what it was. And then that we're in a game, the game has started, and that we've ended the session 3 times. And then here's the other part. See the user ID? So there's the GUID here, which represents me as the user. And we can keep going. So it's comparing whatever I say here. Let's see here. I had an intent request of a number guess, and the number I guessed was 80. So it's comparing the value that I guessed 80 with the session attribute of 79. So now let's go finish it off. 79.
79 is correct. Would you like to play a new game?
So I'll say yes. Now remember, this was my 7th game. And I can see here games played 7.
Right. So now it should say.
Yep. And in fact, it's already updated.
Oh, wow.
In the output response, it says, oh, it's going to be 8 next time. So I'm going to say yes.
Great. Try saying a number to start the game.
And then now I see games played is 8. Right? Oh, that game is ended. So now I'm going to, and the last number I guessed was 79. So I'm going to say yes.
The high-low game skill can't help you with that.
And our new
Try
number,
guessing a number between 0 and 100.
I'm going to go right in the middle, 50.
It says right there, 92. I thought you would. All right, I'm going to explain session attributes all over again.
I'm pretending that I didn't see that.
Oh, that was a good move. Well acted. And the Emmy goes to Justin. Okay, so that's how the session attributes work. Now, persistent attributes, if I quit the game, so now all those attributes are gone, and I open high-low game.
Welcome to high-low guessing game. You have played 8 times. Would you like to play?
Right, so it's starting all over, and it remembered the 8 times. So if we look at that, what we have here is the bit of code that will help you do that. So what we're doing is we're calling into the attributes manager, and we're doing get persistent attributes. And then if there are no persistent, if there are no attributes persisted, usually it's the very first time they've ever played, then we will reset the game, right? Make everything clear. Otherwise, we have the persistent attributes, and now we can just use them throughout our game.
And when we're getting those persistent attributes, we're getting them from somewhere that's stored outside of our skill. Because if they're not persistent, they're going to disappear after the skill ends. And so, you know, we can, if we're using Alexa hosted, we'll be storing those in S3. And if you choose to host your Alexa skill in your own backend, then you can store it in either S3 or DynamoDB. So that get persistent attributes is loading that information out of a place different from our skill.
Right. So S3 is a file storage system, so you just save JSON files. And Dynamo is a key value pair database.
Yes.
All right. Great. We survived the demo.
Yes.
So let's come on back.
Was the answer 42?
The answer is always 42. The problem is I don't remember the question. All right. So there's a few things to think about that. And that skill is a very simplistic skill. So what we did is whenever you launch the skill, we get the persistent attributes. Right? If you have a more complex skill, you might want to get the persistent attributes when you launch the skill. Or you might have somebody say, open the skill with an utterance. So it's a one-shot, right? You might say, I don't know what the adventure game would be like. Open an adventure game and go to the city, right? So you're doing something directly. And that would bypass the launch request because it would do an intent request, even though it's a new session. So what you want to do is you want to be able to recognize when it's a brand new session and restore the attributes no matter what. A good way to do that is to use a request interceptor. And so if you remember how the SDK works, there's handlers, and the handlers are taking in whatever you say and the situation and then responding to that. And then there's request interceptors, which happen first. So it does the request interceptors, then it goes on to the handlers. And then there's response interceptors, which are when you're all done, Now we can grab the response, we can do some post-processing, and send it on its way.
Yeah, it's really cool that you have access to the request and response at all different states of the workflow.
Yeah. So request interceptor is great for getting attributes. The response interceptor is really good for storing, persisting. It's also good for if the kind of request that you got was a can fulfill intent request. So now you can change your payload to match the proper output for that. All right. So great. So we can do it all those different moments. Ready to move on?
Yes.
Me too. Cross-device integration. So this is really good for those skills where you've got some sort of physical, real-world experience going. So let's talk about buttons, the Gadget controller. Bandit button is this example. Again, the experience here is we've each got a button, and whenever the button is green for everybody, we hit it, or yellow for everybody, we hit it, or purple for everybody, we hit it. If they're different colors, don't hit it. If they're red, even for everybody, you don't hit it. Okay, that's the game. And it's actually really fun. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So how does that work? Well, buttons have an independent event channel. You have your normal voice channel where you say Alexa, blah, blah, blah. And then you have the buttons where you can say tap down, up, tap when there's a color, tap when there's a sequence. All those things create events and then go to your skill.
Right. So now you're not only just getting voice-driven events, now you can have events that are driven by gadgets, in this case, the buttons.
The buttons. My favorite button skill, I actually don't think it was published. I just saw it in a hackathon, but it was amazing. So what you do is one person would wear a button on their chest and then on their palm.
Okay.
And the other person does the same. And then you run around and you have to hit the other person's chest. So you have a shield and a sword. Isn't that great?
That is pretty great.
It's like tag.
That is awesome.
So another thing you can do with gadgets is session extension. So as you probably know with voice, you have 8 seconds to respond.
Right.
With buttons, you can extend that session to whatever you need to get your experience laid out. And then you also have mic control. So if you wanted to, you could play music and have the mic turned off so that people can talk and kibitz amongst themselves and figure out what they want to do. And then they go, okay, we're ready. And they buzz in. Right?
Right. Like a game show.
Like a game show. So the Gadget controller allows you to do a few different things. There's a sequence, right? Like the buttons will turn different colors. And you can do all sorts of things. You can do a color. You can change the duration of that color. So like maybe you want it all on all the time, or maybe you want it to be flashing. And then you can blend it. So you can go from light red to yellow or whatever.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then you also have Gadget IDs. So when you start playing the game, you do a thing called roll call, where it's like, who all's here? And you buzz in to say, it'll say like, player 1, hit your buzzer. And then Justin would hit his. And player coolest, hit your buzzer. And then Justin would hit it again.
That's definitely not you, Paul.
Anyway, we all buzz in, and now that button is associated with me. And so that's how you do the roll call thing.
Right. So if you're going to play that sword or the shield and
player 1, hit your shield.
Right.
Player 1, hit your sword. Yeah.
Right.
And then you can go through and you can repeat things. You can trigger things. It's got colors. Send those animations down and up. Cool. So the other thing that you can do now, you're controlling the buttons, right? Inputs and outputs. You can also have a game engine that's watching what's going on, and you can look for cool things like, I will give you I'll give you a point once 3 blues have happened. So you can define these sequences or these conditions. And so in this case, we just said any 3 blues. Once there's the 3rd blue, whoever is going to win. Right. Now, it could be that you say it's got to be 3 blues in a row, or it's got to be blue, then green, then red, or I don't know, whatever you think it might be.
Right.
If it's Morse code, you have to spell the word based on the dashes and dots. Like you can do all sorts of cool stuff.
Right. Yeah, you can recognize different sequences, which is really cool.
Yeah. Okay. So the game engine directive has a few different parts. You have your Lambda skill and you have the game engine. The first part is the system of recognizers. And recognizers are what allow you to check for that sequence that you just defined. We just defined 3 blues, so now I can check for that. Or I can check for a timeout. So like you might say, well, I want to extend my session to be 30 seconds. At the end of 30 seconds, it's going to go, too late, right? You didn't, or time's up, now it's time to answer, and then you have your 8 seconds. Or you can do whatever combination of things you might want to do. All right, then you have events. So an event would be something like, I just won the game, like I hit the buzzer first, or the timeout actually happened, right? So I have these recognizers that recognize conditions I've designed, and then events that are triggers.
Right.
That will tell us to go look at the
So your recognizers recognize something and then send an event?
The event is sent, and your recognizers are waiting. And the event is sent, and they go,
I see.
oh, it's this
Okay.
one, right? Right, there's all sorts of arrows. All right, and that goes your Lambda function, you do your work. All right, now let's talk about designing for voice with buttons. Because it still is, a lot of times people are like, but what about voice first? And I'm like, well, voice first holds true with buttons, with the Call of Duty experience, with all of these. The main thing is realizing that when you're interacting with a voice in a voice kind of a way, it's just a different modality. Right. So you've got to work through that. So one is, don't make the animations too fast. You can make these things flicker really quickly, and then you can't react fast enough. And
right, it would be unrealistic if when you're doing bandit buttons and the colors faded too fast that you couldn't even like register that you need to press at the right time. So
another one would be make a user interaction storyboard. So we talk a lot about storyboards. It's very fun and easy to get quickly into the skill building experience where you're making your game loop work, right? And getting all that nailed down, which you have to do. But stepping back from it and going like, what do I want the experience to feel like? How does it go? Storyboard that out and make sure that you've got the experience included with voice and with buttons. And a key piece of this is to talk it through. Like actually have another person there. The way I like to say it is to have one person act like Alexa, one person act like a human, and then you can work through it. The next one is to have the sense of memory. We talked about memory in terms of a voice-only game, right? But even in a case where you've got buttons, you want to know, well, what was happening when they hit the button, what was happening before, what's the series of button presses that happened, and so forth. Like an example, this would be like, well, if there are 3 that are red, like you got to know that there are 3 are red.
right.
Okay. And then you've got to get your build process right. So games require a lot of balancing to make them fun.
Right. Which also sort of goes back into the point about making your animations too fast. Because if the animations are too fast, then the game's not going to be realistically able to handle the player's requests to be able to press the button in a reasonable amount of time. And
so the thing to think about here is, how can I deploy, test, and try out things quickly? And so you want to have your efficient build process. I think once you get beyond your very first, ooh, this is fun prototype, go get the CLI running for the command line interface so you can update quickly. You might even go further and get SMAPI, which is the skill management API, and you might build a web page where you have level editors on your web page, and you let your level designers, even if that's you with a different hat on, without writing code, they're configuring levels, and then that's getting pushed into the skill. And you can do that through.
Yeah, because then you can make your tweaks. You can also do some stuff on the fly too, if you're loading in from a separate file what the game rules are.
Like a great example of that is with, well, let's say you have a game and it's got the bad guy, and the bad guy he's got a power of 6, a speed of 2, or whatever. And you're like, oh, nobody can beat the bad guy. Well, I could just change the variable of speed of 6 down to 5, and I could say A/B test it, right? I can give that to 10% of the people is this lower speed and see how they succeed, and then I can eventually just say, oh, I'll just give that to 100% of people.
Right.
So without even doing a code change, I'm just changing that data.
Right.
Okay. And then iterative testing, right? Like I've always been tempted just to test it with ourselves, but getting out and testing with a bunch of folks is really good.
Right.
Important.
Very important.
I myself, I've never seen this with any other game dev, but I myself think my ideas are way better than they are. Everybody else is spot on, but I tend to overestimate how good they are. It's brilliant, and then I explain it, and they're like, yeah, I don't get it. All right, so that's thinking about cross devices. So next, we want to talk about variety.
Yes.
Variety is really, really important.
Very important. You don't want to be too repetitious.
I don't want to, yeah. I love it. All right, so the first one is, let's have some character to this, right? An obvious one is to actually have voice actors come in and produce the audio for you and so forth. There's some pros to this because, wow, it sounds polished. You can get the exact actor you want. You can get all the emotion
Yes,
into
it's very engaging.
Very engaging. You can see this with skills like Mr. Robot or Jurassic World and those kinds of things. The other part is it's limiting in some ways because now I can't compose text together on the fly and I have to record everything. And I can't be different every single time because I want to pre-record 8 versions of the same welcome or whatever.
Right.
So, so another route to go is with SSML and using normal text-to-speech stuff. So here's an example of this. Let's just listen to it.
This morning when I woke up to come to reinvent, I spoke quite slowly until I had my coffee. Then I felt alive.
All right, awesome. That went into the system, and I'm sure you heard it, but we didn't. Notice how you know, it said, "This morning I woke up," and then it goes, "I spoke really slowly, and then I felt alive." Right? So you can change the prosody and the speak thing. Okay. So let's do another one here. This one I want to show you how to. I guess I have it on the slide, but I'm going to show you how you can test this out for yourself. If I can only select, I might have it on my clipboard already. So in your testing console, this is where we were a minute ago, if you recall. Let me just exit this game. Okay, so in your test console, you can go to this thing called voice and tone. If you don't know about this, this is
really
like,
great.
This made your whole day worth it.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
this one feature is super useful. What you can do here is you can, I'm so hoping I have it on my clipboard. I don't have it on my clipboard.
You could probably minimize the presentation and copy it straight out of the slide.
All right, so let's go get this out of here. I have it. Great, so here we are. We're in our console. I clicked on voice and tone.
Yep.
I also realized that people probably couldn't see that because I had the PowerPoint running. So I'm like, look at the screen, like it's amazing. This made your whole day. Oh, it's in PowerPoint. That's what you get for streaming straight to Twitch. Okay, so voice and tone, I'm gonna paste this into here. So now you see this here, and now I can listen to this.
Oh, you need to sign back in.
Yep. I've not been in here for a while.
So once he signs back in, we're going to be able to hear Alexa speak this text with the SSML tags without having to save or compile or do anything for our skill. So
yeah, I'm not even in that skill right now. I'm in some other skill. So here we go.
This morning when I woke up to come to reinvent, I spoke quite slowly until I had my coffee. Then I felt alive.
Awesome. So the funny part there is I copied the wrong one. So let's go back to the deck. I want to show you another one. Here. Great. So this is using a poly voice.
This is really cool too.
So, you know, maybe you don't want it to be the same voice for every character. You want to have male characters, you want to have adult characters, you want to have children characters. And there's a set of poly voices that work from around the world, different languages and everything.
Yeah. Bring other languages into your skill.
Yeah,
super cool.
So this voice here is, you'll hear Alexa first, and then you'll hear Celine and speaking French. I'll zoom in so you can really get a feel for it.
Welcome to Carrefour.
Bienvenue à Carrefour.
You can order a ride or request a fare estimate. Which will it be?
Really cool.
Okay.
So yeah, we're able to test and hear Alexa and the poly voices speak without having to, test and open a skill or. So it's really great if you're trying to figure out like how you want to change the pitch with prosody or change the speed, and you can listen to it over and over and over again. So it really helps you speed up your iterative testing of your voices.
Okay, so let's take a look. Another thing that you have available to you is this thing called Speechcons, and that's awesome. I have no cursor. We'll get it. There we go. Let's hear Wowza. Wowza go?
Sure.
I'm gonna hit play. right?
Wowza.
Wowza. So you can use all of these Speechcons to help you get either happy things or negative things and so forth. And then sound effects. There's a set of sounds that we include. We have a sound library that you can go make use of in all of your games. So go check out the ASK for Alexa Skills Kit sound library. This one has a bear groan, and so you can add those. Now you can add your own audio effects too.
Right. You can make your own custom, but there's a whole library there that you can experiment with.
All right. The next part about variety is to add leveling. And so very often what happens is you come up with a game and you're like, hey, that's cool, that's super fun, let's put it out there. But it turns out it's really fun for a narrow audience. And a really key important thing in games is that you want the game to be hard enough that people feel like, I might not actually be able to do this, yet easy enough to be like, I think I could do it, right? There's like this I think I can do it, but there's a real chance of failure, right?
Right.
Without that, it's no fun. Like tic-tac-toe in the very beginning, you're like, I think I can win that.
Right.
And then eventually like, oh, it's always a tie, right? So it's no longer fun.
Right.
So we got to think about leveling in this experience. So you might do something like level 1 is really easy, like a tutorial level, and level 2 is a little bit harder, and you notice if people fail a certain level, they can back up one, and then they can keep going, or giving them knobs to get through it. One shortcut for this leveling thing is to give people consumables. So consumables is a way that you can buy stuff inside of your experience, and it can be things like hints,
or more
lives, or a powerful, get through this level, right? And you use it up, and then it's gone. So, but definitely think about leveling. So, if you just have your game, like a word game, think about how you make it a little bit easier and a little bit harder, and how you can tune that per person. All right, the next part of this is this whole concept of a graph-based UI versus a frame-based UI. And if you've heard us talking about design, we talk about this a lot. There is a notion of a system initiative experience where Alexa is leading the whole conversation, like a quiz game, right? Like, here's a question, answer it, question, answer it, question, answer it. That is sort of like a flow chart. Like it sort of is a call and response, like follow my instructions kind of an experience. But anything more complicated than a good quiz game is going to really require the ability for the user to move around and do some extra things. And so that gets into a frame-based UI.
Yes.
I want to show you one concept of a frame-based UI, which is dialogue management. That's where instead of building out a whole flow chart, I say, I need 3 things from you. Give me the 3 things. Once I have them, we're on our way.
So you don't care about the order in this case.
I don't care about the order at all.
You just need to have all the items.
So I have a really simple, like way too simple maybe, demo of this, which is like a take on escape the room. But instead of escape the room, I'm going to escape the party. Like I want out of the party. Okay.
The wallflower is going to escape.
The wallflower is the wall for all you wallflowers. I know there's nobody in the audience that would do this, but me, I'm going to use this skill all the time. So the way you escape the party is you have to tell the host, in some clever way, I'm going to get out of here.
Okay.
All right, so here we go. So I'm going to say open, make like an escape. Okay?
This party is so lame. How will you get out?
So I'm going to make like a tree.
Make like a tree and what?
Leave.
You made it out. Make like a tree and leave. Bada bing, bada boom. I love it. But now you're at a new party. How will you escape?
What do you want to do? How do you want to get out of here?
I want to make like a sock.
Make like a sock. Okay.
Make like a sock and what?
Get lost.
Get lost.
You made it out. Make like a sock and get lost. Bada bing, bada boom. I love it. But now you're at a new party. How will you escape?
So I could do the whole thing too. Make like hay and bale.
You made it out. Make like a hay and bale. Bada bing, bada boom.
Okay.
I love it. But
so let's
now
exit.
you.
All right, so let's take a look at what that's doing, right? So make like an escape. I go to my build, and I'll show you my interaction model. Should I show you the code first? I'm gonna show the code first.
Sure, yeah.
All right. Mostly I want to show you that it's not doing anything. So here's my answer intent. I mean, this is effectively the code. And it says, hey, I got a thing. That's like make like hey.
Right.
And an exit, bail.
Bail or
And so,
get
hey, you made it
lost.
out. You made like hey and bailed, right? And then it just keeps going through that loop. That's all of the logic that's in this skill. So you imagine escape the room, you'd say like, well, you've got to like put the key in the door and open the window and do whatever you got to do. And then, all right, so let's look at the interaction model. So what I have is an answer intent, make like a blah, make like hey and bail, make like a bread truck and haul buns, right? So then we go into the thing, and in the thing I say it's required. We require the slot thing, and so you'll exit, but will you make it? Make like a what, right? Those are the things that it prompts me with, and then I can have responses.
Right.
Same thing for exit. In my exit, I say it's required. How will you exit? And it gives me a prompt for that.
Right.
And then I have a list of things like tree, hay, bread truck, banana, and then I have a list of exits. So like leaf, split. I make like a banana and split, right? And then I have synonyms.
Yes.
So make like a tree and leaf, or make like a tree and leave, right?
I would say leaf.
Make like a
Rather
tree,
than leave.
make like a tree and leaf.
Yes, make like a tree and leaf.
But it's supposed to be leave. But anyway, it would work. It's fine. It works how you want it to work. All right, so what's the point with all of this? I could have built a skill that says, tell me the thing. And then if you told me the thing, I'd say, tell me the exit. But what if they say both?
Right. Well, we don't need a follow-up question because we have it.
We have it.
Everything we need.
Right, but in a flowcharty skill, you would have then go, like if I said, make like hay and bail, then it goes, well, and how will you exit? Oh, bail. I just told you bail, right?
Right.
In this skill, you can even say, I'm going to bail. And it goes, well, I get you're going to bail, but what are you going to make like? And I'm going to make like hay, right?
Right.
So you can do both. Okay, so we better get rolling here. The next part is, where are we at? We're here. Context matching. So, in this model, you've got a game that exists somewhere else. Maybe you built something in Unity. Maybe you built a web page. Maybe you built a mobile app, something like that. That game is going to store some state into your web service. DynamoDB, S3 bucket, so forth. Okay, then your Alexa skill is also going to be running, and it's going to store some state into that thing. So now, when you have both of those together, then you can say, the stuff I'm doing here in the web service is the stuff I'm doing here in the Alexa service. And so now I could do things like call in my friends or equip something. Or in a Unity game, like a PC game, I might say spawn a bad guy, and then bad guys spawn in there. All that sort of then connects together, and the user can use both at the same time. So that's generally how you put that together.
Right.
I want to spend just a few, like maybe a minute or so, talking about how we make money.
All right.
And this is probably the last thing you do, but you need to think about it in the beginning to make sure you design your skill out right. Yes, Sire did a great job with that. The premise of the skill is, somebody from the community comes up to you and they say, "Oh, little Johnny stole an apple," and then you, as the leader of this community, have to make a decision. What do you do about that?
Right.
And if you chop off their hands, you get bonus points for justice, but you also get the community now hates you, right? And you lose points for that.
Right.
If you lose too many points, you're out, and if you win too many points, you're out.
Right.
So you got to balance it,
Yes.
right?
All through just yes, no questions.
Yes and no questions. So then what's cool about it is they go, oh, you're getting very close to losing. Would you like us to reset your scores to 50s, and you can start from the middle? So that's a consumable.
Yes.
And there are three kinds of experiences. One is the one-time purchase. So the one-time purchase is where you can buy a level, and now it's your level and you have it forever.
Right.
Or you can subscribe and you get new, fresh content all of the time. Or you can do consumables, right? And consumables is where you get like a hint or extra lives. So just think about where you want to put these into your experience, where you want to upsell them. Think about those moments where people are like, I now understand the value of this experience and I want more of it.
Right.
And so we plug in those upsells there. All right, should we recap?
Yes, let's do it.
All right, I forget the first one.
Oh, I forgot too. Something about like not forgetting things.
Memory is the first one. And then we've got cross-device integration. So this is like board games and buttons and consoles, right? Thinking about that whole experience. Adding a sense of variety.
Yep.
Keeping it flowing, keeping it fun and making sense.
Right.
Matching the context, making sure we always know that we're like lined up together, and then of course, making money.
Making money.
So if you want to learn more about all this stuff, there's a few different resources for you. There's the design guide. There's, if you go to alexa.design/standout, you can see more tips for making a standout skill. And of course, we have office hours every Tuesday at 1 Pacific time. And then in Spanish would be later. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.